Hi, folks. Thanks for joining me again for Alicia's Desk Story Time. So, this time around, I've got a really neat one for you. It's called Lucky Lucky Stars, Part 1, and it's an excerpt from the brand new web novel that is coming out later today called The Whole Point. It's published by Celestial Imprint Publishing, and it's going to be available in their Celestial library. So, the thing is, this artwork, it was actually done as a companion piece to the Whole Point novel. And so little Baby Saran in the painting is actually the inspiration for the whole thing. And it was created for the Art of Pigs art show going on July 31st and August 1st, 2026, coordinated by Dean Sturdivant of Green Unicorn Art out at Merle Hay Mall. And so, yeah, he definitely inspired something awesome like he always does. But without further ado, Lucky Lucky Stars, an excerpt from the Whole Point web novel. Let's meet Brynn, Banksy, Lucky, and of course, Baby Saran. Here we go. Part 1. It was still in the last bits of winter when the cold hadn't quite gone away that Brynn found her little blue piglet. She knew that if Liliana, her stepmother, found him, she would carve the little pig up for dinner or use him as another tool to keep Brynn quiet about her adventures with the men in town while father was away. So Brynn thought fast and made the unpleasant decision to ruin Liliana's favorite red dress, the one she usually met men for dinner in. Liliana called it her lucky dress. Brynn hadn't the foggiest why. Of course, it didn't go well, and Liliana confined her to an even further storeroom at the opposite end of the house when Brynn wasn't doing chores or at school as punishment. It wasn't ideal, but it would save the pig's life, and that was the whole point. Liliana had been so angry that she hadn't even had the mind to hit Brynn or Banksy, which was something new. She just stood and sputtered about no food for them and then screamed bloody murder. She threw things and they broke. Poor Banksy huddled in the corner and Brynn stayed in front of him while Liliana's tirade stormed around them. Brynn was infinitely grateful that she had hidden the piglet in the sheep shed, or this could have been so much worse. Finally, Liliana screamed for Brynn to go and take that filthy mutt with her, and that was all Brynn needed to hear. She knew better than to move when Liliana was mad. She'd learned that from experience. So she and Banksy took off for the farthest storage room away from the main house. Once they got into the door, they could hear Liliana still screaming and throwing things by herself. Brynn shut it tight and slid down the door to hug her poor pup. They just sat and breathed together for a little while, until the piglet's soft squeak cut through the post-storm fog. Liliana had inadvertently sent Brynn and Banksy to the exact room that she had hid the piglet in. Talk about irony. Brynn got up slowly and went to cradle the piglet. It seemed to be able to tell how stressed she was. Banksy came over and gave its hind foot a nudge, so the piglet was already family. Banksy never did stuff like that unless he had decided, in all of his Australian shepherdiness, that this thing was now part of his pack. Brynn laughed. Yes, the piglet was family. It was the three of them against the whole world. Once Brynn had made a bed for the piglet, Liliana had tuckered herself out and was soundly snoring in her room, drooling with the door half open. Brynn went through the laborious process of moving her things, including her bed, to the far, far room. She left Banksy to look after the piglet. He was good with tiny things. It was worse than the storeroom, she had to admit, but it was quiet, and Liliana wouldn't bother to come and find her here so long as the chores got done. It was actually kind of peaceful, and Brynn idly wondered why she had never done this before. Probably the fear of another horrible beating for her and Banksy. Once done, she slumped to the dusty floor and leaned against her 3 boxes, sweating and exhausted. It had been mostly the bed and dresser that did her in. They were heavy and the only leftovers from when her mother was still alive, and they had been an actual family. When Mama passed, Father had been sad but determined to keep their small farm going and give Brynn a good life. But Father just wasn't the money person that Mother had been, and soon things got bad. Then Liliana breezed into town and convinced him that he needed to let her help and that he needed to take an on-the-road job for the finances. And that was that. He couldn't argue that he needed to work, and he thought Liliana cared for him and Brynn. Brynn had actually wanted to go with her father, but knew it was a pipe dream. Once Dad was gone, Liliana set her straight, and that was also that. She stared at her dresser, the one that she and Dad had painted themselves, the one that Liliana had mocked over and over, and felt tears sting the back of her eyes. Her heart gave such a terrible squeeze. Just then the piglet grunted and squealed softly. Brynn smiled and made her way over to the piglet, holding it up. "We need to think of a name for you. I can't just keep calling you Piglet. What would you like to be named? Blue seems a little, The pig squeaked happily. It was just a little bundle of love, and Brynn hugged it close, very gently. It snuggled up with her, and she felt peace roll over her, and then something close to happiness. Her chest still hurt, but now it was in a good way. And then her heart nearly stopped. If it hadn't been for her fear of Liliana discovering the piglet, she would have screamed. There, right where the piglet had been in its bed, was a thick, furry, brownish spider. The thing was twice the size of the piglet, perhaps 3 times, and staring at Brynn, who was backing up very slowly. She blinked at the thing. It spoke a stream of gibberish, and her mind froze with fear. It beeped, then again, then once more. And then a series of clicks came from it. Its golden eyes glowed a light blue, and then it cleared its throat. "Hello, I am Lucretian. And you are?" That ends part 1. Thanks so much for taking this journey with me, and I'll see you again for part 2. Have a wonderful day and take care of yourself out there. Bye-bye now.